Hello, everyone, and welcome to what I always call a very special episode. But I mean, this one is a little bit extra special. We're talking about the 260th episode for the Property Trio, and I'm joined for this kind of introspective and trip down memory lane with my two co-hosts, David Johnson and Kate Bakos. Welcome to 260.
I can't believe we've got here. It's so cool, and it's nice having you host it, Mike, because you get to listen to some of the old Pete episodes, and yeah, you've got a fresh take on all of this. It's special.
Yeah. Well, I've done next to nothing to get here.
Oh, you've done a lot.
61 eps now with you.
Yeah.
Is that right? Oh gosh.
You're really up to 25% of the time with
Oh
us,
wow.
Mike.
Yeah, okay.
20%,
Yeah.
so it's hard to. It's actually 5 years. It feels actually longer than 5 years, to be honest.
Thanks, Dave.
I think. I
don't know if that's a good.
We had COVID in between.
Yeah,
It was a
and I mean,
bonding time.
It was. Yeah.
And that is quite an interesting sort of part of the story of this show, because in the beginning you guys used to record these mega mammoth sessions, and then COVID sort of forced a little bit of a change. But you know, some of the things that I noted in some of the prep for this, Kate, is that when you started recording the market updates, that was really just trying to help people to feel reassured in and around property, because there was a period of time where that was so valuable, and we just really didn't know what the world was going to be looking like.
Yeah, it became really evident when COVID first broke and people got over the shock and the panic and started to acclimatise to crazy buyer behaviour and a lot of changes. It became apparent that we needed to be tapping into the data as regularly as we could, because things were unfolding so quickly and changing. And it forced us to really get to know what was going on in all of the different capital cities as well, because the data's there and it's available. And I think that it helped a lot of people just calm their farm, I suppose, in terms of property, and understand what the low interest rates and the forced changes were having on property markets.
Yeah, I think people were really stressed and worried, and I know we started putting out a newsletter once a week and actually really focusing on positive news and trying to just get positive messages out to our client base, because we all remember how much everyone was worried about their jobs, their ability to make their loan repayments. The people who'd bought properties, who some people weren't able to settle on them, and we thought it'd be a good idea to start providing a market update as well, and just as another addition to what we give to our listeners. And it also meant we just had a consistent episode that we would be prepping for once a month, which saved us a bit of time as well, which is always good.
Yeah. But I mean, you guys should really be commended for the work that you did during COVID, because we needed some positive news, and all of it was kind of dire. The economists were talking about the 30% drop in house prices. We had models of 30% unemployment. Would have been crazy times, really, really crazy times. So, it's a really important service you provided to investors during that time. So we're
celebrating each other, to be honest. We'll create support for each other.
Absolutely. Yeah, Dave and Cate were my therapists sometimes.
Is it going to be okay? Well, we better say it is, at the very least. So we're celebrating 5 years here today, and in the early days there was sort of like a batch of the first 7, because quite humbly, you guys were sort of thinking, I don't know if anyone's going to listen to this, but lo and behold, 5 years later, the stats are amazing. Do you guys want to share some of those?
Yeah, for sure. We've had 450 something thousand downloads, and we feel like we've got a wonderful community. We get regular listener questions and feedback, and of course, it's certainly made us more familiar for some of our prospects and new clients who've decided to either join the fold and use our services or reach out. So we couldn't have imagined. And I do remember that being a pilot trial, those first 7 apps. and we were off and running. We had a lot of fun doing them, to be honest. Dave and I just said to each other, this has been so cool. And we could also track how our confidence and, I guess, polish and comfort with sitting in front of a microphone was going. And it became obvious that we had so much more to unpack, and it was very good for us professionally, to learn how to present and to run all of these. So, yeah, no looking back.
Yeah, those first 6 or 7 episodes were very nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
I think I was nervous for the first 100 episodes, to be honest. The first 6 or 7 in particular, running around in our office and asking our staff to be quiet.
Yeah, we had big posters on everything. Shush,
yeah.
podcast in progress.
Podcast in progress. And one of our clients kindly offered to help us run those first 6 or 7 episodes. Shout out to Dave Lewis, who runs the Mentor List podcast. And he was really helpful and really navigated us through those, didn't he, Kate? And
he did. And he introduced us to Jamie.
Yes, yep.
Shout out to Jamie.
Yeah.
Still with us.
Yeah. He's still
the man in the cans. He's listening to this right now.
Changes and
stuff.
That's right. He does a great job.
He's got the patience of a saint, that bloke. Talk to me about in the beginning, because of course pre-COVID you guys would have Pete fly over, Cate to jump on the train over to Camberwell, in your backyard there, Dave. But you guys used to set a bit of a punishing target for yourself, sometimes recording 7 episodes in a day. I mean, the three of us have done, I think 3 is the maximum that we've ever done. And I think we've all agreed that that's more than enough and we need to go to the pub. But you guys, extreme amount of discipline. How did you get through those mammoth sessions?
I made them.
Thanks,
you made
Mike and I
fear.
We would get. I think we'd get to about the 3rd or 4th, and sorry, not Mike and I, Pete and I. There you go.
They'd wilt.
Yeah, Pete and I had wilt. We'd be looking at each other, drained of energy, pale as a ghost by the 6th or 7th. But we'd get through it on the smell of an oily rag.
Well, I had to think about food, Mike, and this sounds funny, but if you just load the guys up with baklava and sugary treats, they'll be great for the first ep, and then they'll really wilt. And so we had healthy food, and then we'd have a light lunch, like a wrap or a salad or something, and then we'd keep pushing through. So we had like nuts and chopped up veggies, and like we were very healthy, just so that we could keep our energy levels consistent. And also, when you're recording 7 episodes, if you start chronologically from number 1 to 7, then you'll be a little bit different by the time you get to the end. And, the listeners will hear that progression. So you've got to mix it up a little bit. So we pop them all on the board, and then we were like starting with 3 and then 2 and then 7 and then 5. And I can't remember the exact order, but there's all kinds of little hacks that people like Dave Lewis can share with you to make sure that your first ep that hits, you've actually warmed up a little bit, got a bit more comfortable in the chair.
Yeah, well, I've noticed that trend even today when we come to the Bay Coast Property Zoo, which is the current sort of podcast location for in-person recording.
Yeah.
Some of those snacks feel very familiar.
Yeah, I always have like nice fresh berries and some, low GI stuff for you guys. I'll look after you, but you only last for 3 and then you want to go to the pub.
Well, I mean, I don't think you've ever sort of said, look, no, that's not for me.
Never.
So when you moved to Zoom, and this is an interesting carryover, the clap in sort of stuff, and we had some fun with that when I first started, because I don't know if it's because I'm in New South Wales, you guys are in Victoria, but there was a real live via satellite feeling where you guys thought, is Mike the least coordinated person rhythmically on earth, or are we having some sort of lag? Because my clap was always half a second behind you guys.
That's right. The clap thing's interesting, and I love that you're
still out on how rhythmically skilled you are, Mike.
Well, you just said to us, oh, guys, there's a way to do this better, and we're like, okay, whatever. New guy comes in telling us how to run the pod, but Riverside is a really good tool. And the problem with the clap was we were just running it on Zoom and voice memo. And so the Zoom was our cue. You'd be listening into the Zoom with an earpiece, but you'd be talking to your smartphone through a proper speaker. And if one of us, aka Dave, forgot to press record, we'd be reliant on the Zoom master, which is never the same quality. So we've got a couple of, not so great audio quality pods out there. It's because one of us didn't press record. And the clapping was to sync the files so that Jamie could marry them up. So not the most sophisticated of audio setups at our end, but, he was such a master with sorting us out.
How about Mike's face when we first said, no, we've got to clap before we start recording? And he's just looking at us like, what are you talking about,
this
you
is
guys?
so prehistoric. What are you guys doing?
I thought I was joining a cult or something. Now, a lot of people...
We've got to do it in person just once. I just want to see if Mike can actually clap in time.
Yeah, we'll take him to a show. We're doing karaoke next time. We'll see how he moves to the beat.
Well,
Promises.
We
talked
talked
about that karaoke for a while now. Okay.
We have talked about the karaoke a bit.
Yeah, but you always say you got school pickup. Karaoke doesn't start at 4 p.m. It's after 10 whiskies in the city at about 2 a.m.
Yeah, we'll see at karaoke, Dave. I know you got moves. Now, a lot of people ask how long the podcast has been going. Obviously, we've answered that question today. 5 years and 260 episodes, which is an incredible achievement. But one of the common questions that people get is, do you find it difficult to come up with topics when we don't have guests? Because the Property Trio, as distinct from a number of property podcasts, is that sometimes they'll just be the host chatting, but most of the time there is a guest who, to be honest, does a lot of the heavy lifting for the show, but we can't do that, right? It's just the three of us.
Yeah. I love that it's evolved like that. We weren't firm on that at the start, were we, Dave? We wanted to, get out all of the EPs that we'd sort of mapped out. You and I would catch up in the laneway near Flinders Street Station and have a couple of wines and just write down lots of EPs and come back with a bit of a plan.
Come up with about 20 ideas and narrow down to our preferred 7 for our next
that's
recording.
Right. We do that
session.
a few times.
But they were always good fun catch-ups.
Heaps of fun, and they kept coming. And you and I said, well, when the flow isn't the same and we run out of ideas, we'll start bringing in guests, and it's never happened. And part of the fun that we have is that we've become like 3 familiar radio hosts, and we goof around and sometimes get our reviewers reminding us that they want to hear us joking around less and talking property more. Noted. But that is part of the fun for us, and hopefully part of the charm and what makes us a little bit different. And what's really interesting is the more we've done this, the easier the topics flow, because we're having interaction with our listeners as well. We're getting really good questions, and sometimes we'll unpack something, and unpacking it doesn't mean that the 3 of us jump on one morning and talk about all the stuff we know. Often we'll pick something that we don't know everything about, and it means we have to research, and research can take a couple of days. And what that tends to lead to is more stuff that we need to research. So we don't just try and deliver high quality things that we've delved into, but we're constantly learning as well.
Yeah, and I was really conscious of us providing a different angle to a lot of the podcasts out there. Most of them do tend to bring people in and interview them.
And some of them talk footy.
So, which Pete and I used to occasionally get away with.
How are the pies going, Dave?
Oh, I'd slap your hands.
So, but I thought, having that different angle where we were sharing, I guess, a lot of our journey in terms of our expertise and what we've learned along the way with our listeners would provide something different. And then also, 3 of us from 3 different businesses, and, it's pretty male dominated, not the broader property industry, although not so much in buyers advocacy. It's probably 50-50 almost, would it be?
Yeah.
But there wasn't many female voices on the property podcast, so I thought that was a really nice element for us to have. Obviously, Cate already being a long time good friend, and then having someone from an actual university background, and again Pete, a long time friend, brought something different as well, and then I just made up the numbers. So it was
good on you.
So I thought, so we thought that would be a good sort of mix, but we did expect that we would have to start interviewing people, honestly, by about the 40th or 50th episode. So
yeah,
Yeah, I remember being propositioned to be a guest on the Property Trio. Might have even been by Pete, probably 2 or 3 years ago now. But it's not a direction that the show has gone in, and probably unlikely to deviate, because I personally can't see us running out of stuff. I mean, once a month we're doing the market update, and then typically, to give people a bit of an idea behind the curtain, that leaves 3 other weeks, and there's 3 hosts, so everyone kind of gets their idea of, all right, well, here's something that's important to me, or here's something that aligns with my area of specialization, or it could actually be, gosh, I really kind of want to unpack this, so it becomes a big research process for that person. So we sometimes are learning on the job as well, which is great. It forces you to keep your mind sharp, because, like, I know for myself personally, I don't play necessarily in the property market space on a daily basis, working more on the technical stuff. So it keeps the skill set up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. And look, some of my favourite episodes have 100% been ones where I've had to deep dive and do a hell of a lot of research to put together the episode, and often, on a topic that I actually just wanted to understand better, and,
Yeah.
people were interested in or talking about, and you don't love how much time they take up, so you don't do them too often, but it does take your knowledge to a whole nother level on different topics.
Well, that 3-part series on the RBA was a great example of that, I think, Dave. I mean, you're obviously very highly versed in the machinations of the Reserve Bank, but that clearly was a research piece that had you diving into the charter and all the granular stuff. And you could just see when you walked in with this 3-part series, Cate and I are sort of sitting there going,
It's
geez,
going to be big.
this is big, but just
What have we done
that
here?
smile on your face was infectious.
Yeah.
And this is where normally you're quite good at saying, those were episodes X, Y, and Z, and if you're interested in this, check out episode X, Y, and Z. And Anne-Marie does a great job of that. And what you notice is that many of the stuff we've kind of covered, but perhaps from different angles, or we're giving a modern take on it because the data's changed or the behavior's changed. So for anyone that's interested in a particular topic, there's normally 1 or 2 episodes in and around that. And if there's not, we get listener questions, and there's been around about 50 of those that have been answered, and we absolutely love them. And we've had some crackers over the years.
Yeah, we have indeed.
Yeah,
And
it's great.
it's a bit like any format or classroom. When someone puts a hand up and asks a question, you can see everyone else going, oh, yeah, I was going to ask that question, or that applies to me and I was a bit too scared to put my hand up. So I think it's great. And we don't try and cherry pick. We try to make space for all of our listener questions. And happily, we've got quite a few in the vault that we can tap into. So I think we've got an endless number of topics, at least for the medium term.
Yeah, and it's another great addition to the flow with the market update, the listener questions, and then we come up with our own episode.
Yeah.
It means, we only need to come up with our own episode 1 in every 5 episodes. So that's helpful
Exactly.
too.
Now, one of our greatest challenges was our significant change when Pete decided to leave the show to enjoy retirement, and finding someone who could fit in with us and bring a new element, but really have great camaraderie and a fresh set of eyes into other topics that we could bring to life. And Mike, to be honest, you were a really easy choice. We
I thought you were
circled
going to
in on.
say, ask Mike if he knows anyone who'd fill that.
I'm still looking.
It was so cool. I remember ringing you, and you were so good about it because there's no money in it, and there's heaps of planning, and you're a really busy guy, and you said yes. We're really stoked. And then we had a bit of fun with an interview series that we did on you, and from day dot, you were goofing around and giving us cheeky Easter eggs and lots of fun. Dave can shed light on some of the written format show notes that we get from you and what we have to be really careful about.
Look, firstly, before I share that, Mike's definitely just stepped right into Pete's shoes very comfortably, and been a great new addition to the team. He brings a wealth of knowledge and experience, and the skill you have with analysing data is is off the charts and really adds another dimension to what we do in the podcast. And but Mike, when he prepares his episodes, which he does really well, like he actually goes to the effort of taught Cate and I a thing or two again about how to run a podcast. He prepares a document with a pretty structured flow and a few words for each of us to say around it. But what Mike likes to just add in the odd maybe obscenity, shall we say?
He wants to catch us out.
Yeah.
So we have to read it really carefully first, just to, separate out some of those little bombshells.
Yeah.
There's a few reasons why I do that. One, I'm very, very immature. Obviously, Pete was the elder statesman of the group. I've described him as the dad of the podcast because often I listen to the early ones and it was kind of like Dave and Cate was squabbling and Pete would be like, now, children, let's get back on track. And, he kind of...
He didn't like that at all.
No. Yeah, you could see it made him uncomfortable, and he's like, all right, well, we're going to have to take the toys away if you can't sort of share them, sort of stuff. So
everybody's right, no one's wrong.
And when you say, stepping into Pete's shoes, I never felt like that was the right approach. I never felt up to that challenge, and I don't think he's replaceable in any way. So I tried to sort of just put the shoes to the side, bring my own in, and pay homage to those shoes, like getting Pete back for the prediction episode, and I'm sure he'll be back again as well. But I love putting those little things together just because it kind of keeps it fun and interesting and on your toes. And I hate it when podcasts just read off the script. So if the script says, F that for an idea, then Dave's going to see that and go, oh, all right, this is probably where I sort of, jump into it with my own little spin on it. Because if I read that out, I'm going to get cancelled.
Yeah, I think once or twice we've thrown in the script, but Jamie's done a good job in beeping it out.
I still feel embarrassed that I'm the only person that's dropped an F-bomb on this show, but it was when the earthquake hit, so...
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a memory too, isn't it? Yeah. Recording while the earthquake was...
my office was moving. My screen toppled over. I was a bit freaked.
Now, Cate, you mentioned earlier on with the reviews. I mean, there's now 145 ratings on Apple Podcasts, 68 on Spotify. So if you are listening now and you haven't given us a review, we would love one, a 5-star one if you wouldn't mind. But we don't always get it right. We've had criticism about particular episodes where we've kind of thought, oh, look, we probably didn't give enough background for that opinion, or we've had a little bit too much fun and silliness, perhaps with my scripts or the banter and that sort of stuff. And we care about delivering a package that applies and is valuable to as many people as possible. But you've got to break a couple eggs to make an omelette sometimes, haven't you?
You do indeed. Yeah. You can't please everybody all the time. But, but we do love the feedback, positive and constructive.
Positive and negative. We've got a 1-star review there from someone called Karen who I don't know, clearly didn't enjoy that ep, but it happens and it's real, and our reviews are our reviews, but we do read them all and we take them on board too.
Yes, and of the, what do you say, 61 episodes I've done, I think I've contributed to the lowest rated episode so far. So it's always nice to bring something to the table. We want to give a bit of a shout out to some of the behind the scenes people as well. We sort of did that a little bit. Of course, we wouldn't do it if we weren't getting the positive feedback from listeners that we get on a regular basis and the listener questions. But a shout out to Jamie, of course, who's the producer for the show. Anne-Marie, who basically is kind of like the structure and making sure we're on track and we've got the right schedules and that people aren't on holidays and it's not all going to catch fire. Also, a lot of the research stuff as well. And
she's
JD,
sometimes tech support. I want to thank Anne-Marie because she can be a bit of a night owl and she never lets me down. When I text her at 10:30 at night because the upload's not working, or reach out to get passwords sorted or whatever, she's spot on. So Anne-Marie, thank you. It is appreciated. I know that, the podcast sometimes has you doing some out of hour stuff and you're always so cheery and helpful.
Yeah, Anne-Marie has done an amazing job with supporting us in the podcast, and Kate's feeling a bit guilty because she woke her up the other night when
I
something
did.
wasn't working.
My password didn't work.
Oh,
Anne-Marie's now back in the habit of going to bed early, and she gets up early, goes to the gym.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Anne-Marie.
She's a legend. I remember, and talking about me joining the show, obviously I knew both of you quite well. I knew of Pete. I think I'd interviewed him on my podcast a while beforehand. But I remember coming and doing some media stuff with you, Dave, in your office, doing some videos. And just from the moment I met Anne-Marie, it was kind of like, well, even before meeting her, she was just anticipating the needs, like, oh, you can park here, and what sort of coffee would you like? And I was like, wow, this lady's amazing. And she's, hasn't disappointed with any other interaction I've had with her. She's a big part of the glue that holds everything together here behind the scenes. So a big shout out to her, and also JD as well, who has been responsible for us kind of launching on YouTube. Still sort of fairly early days for us with subscribers and that sort of thing, but it's nice that people can get to see a little bit deeper behind the show, because when it's just an audio, you can't see some of the cheeky little in-jokes happening, the times where people are shaking their head or they're smiling or they're just going, yes, no, how about that Greens policy? That is a beauty, those sorts of moments. All right, so what I would like to do as well is talk about some of the gold nuggets or the early snippets that we've had from the show. We've sort of scoured those episodes, especially the first three, where we were introducing the planner, the professor, and the buyer. So here's a couple of our favorite picks in and around those beginning episodes and the original hosts.
We each chose a few snippets from those very early recordings, some of the favourite things and the lasting things and the stuff that I look back and go, wow, that was a pretty significant thing to say in the very early days. And of course, got some of the fun stuff like Pete and his love of food, and then Pete and his love of the weather. We had to have a little
talking about the weather.
Yeah, we had a team meeting. Dave and I were like, right, how can we start the app and ask a different question so that Pete's like, yeah, it's a great sunny day. I'm looking out the window and, I went for a run this morning. So we certainly have evolved and we had a lot of fun, but we've got some really great pieces of insight and things that I think are wonderful gold nuggets that have carried us right through the show.
Yeah, so we've just picked out a few nuggets from our earliest episodes, and we'll pick out and also a few from Mike's first episode, because look, really our first 20 or so episodes, we covered some of the core, I guess, fundamentals of property investing. And for all our current listeners who haven't listened to our early episodes, we really recommend you go back and listen to those episodes in full. But for you now are a number of snippets chosen by each of us of some of, I guess, the gold nuggets from our first few episodes.
Well, there's some absolute beauties there, and there's no stopping us yet. We'd love to hear from you if there are any sort of snippets from shows. Certainly, if you give us the episode number and a timestamp, that'd be great for us to share in future episodes as well, because I think there's such an amazing resource of content that you guys have put together over the last 5 years. It's a thrill to be a part of it. Any closing words from you guys in celebrating this 5-year milestone?
I think we've got to play Pete's song.
Yeah, you got to know when to hold them. It's been a great 5 years. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, same. And our friendships have been incredible. You do have to gel together and work through so many things when you're running something like this. And what we've always wanted to make sure is that not one person puts their stamp all over it, that we do it cohesively and together, and I've just loved it. So here's to 5 more.
Yeah, here's to 5 more. Amazing work that you guys have done, and a big shout out to Peter Kay as well, the man, the myth, the legend, who's enjoying his retirement, and I'm sure we'll pepper him in here and there over the upcoming years. And yeah, we'll see you at 10 years, eh?
Yeah.
Sounds good. We've got to
See you for
come up
261.
with another song to sing at some point.
Karaoke, Dave.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Cheers, guys.
See you
See you
later.
later.